today's video, I thought it would be fun to take a look back on the history of Toybiz, just because if you've been watching my channel or familiar with my channel, and by the way, welcome to my channel, Mandalorian. My name's Cody. Thank you for checking out the video today. I've always had a deep nostalgia and respect and passion in my heart for the early Toybiz days, especially the Marvel Legends, but even beyond that, like the X-Men figures and the Spider-Man animated series figures. I've even gone back and recollected some of those, especially like I said, if you've seen any of my content lately, I have the Punisher, and then my wife recently got Norman Osborn with a talking helmet, talking goblin mask and stuff from an early Raimi Spider-Man movie. It's really rad. But with that being said, I just really started to recognize how much nostalgia I actually had for these, and I grew up with my brother collecting these, who is no longer with us. Rest in peace, Steve. Miss you, man. But going back and collecting these figures, I started to think about my brother and think about just all the great memories and times that I had with these figures and my brother. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start tracking down some more of these that I used to have growing up. And I just love the blister packaging. It comes with the comic, which you can reference in context to what the figures coming with. And Toybiz was really, especially in the early 2000s, Toybiz was just absolutely delivering on action figures, man. Every figure was a unique sculpt. There was very little reuse, if not to little to no reuse at all. Highly articulated figures with awesome accessories, comes with the comic. And then they started introducing Build-A-Figure waves, which come with the whole pieces, and most of the time the pieces that came with the Build-A-Figure, like for the Galactic or the Sentinel or whatever, those pieces of the Build-A-Figure were oftentimes more expensive than the actual figure that was coming in the box. And then just the overall packaging, the way that you see the blister and you can see everything, you see the comic, the figure, all the accessories, whatever display base or whatever comes with it. Toybiz was just absolutely cooking, and I just thought it would be really cool to take a look back and reminisce on that. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you all for checking it out. Hit that like button if you are enjoying it so far, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. Thank you so much. Origins and early years. Toybiz's roots go back to a small toy manufacturer in Montreal, Canada, originally called Sharon Industries in the early 1970s and 80s. They made inexpensive generic toys such as dolls, water guns, and action figures. In the mid-1980s, the company rebranded as Toybiz and began licensing products like Rambo, Chuck Norris Karate Commandos, and DC comic characters. Marvel Connection and Rise. In 1988, Toybiz signs a deal with Marvel Entertainment Group to produce Marvel superhero action figures. Then in 1990, Marvel purchased a significant stake in Toybiz. That partnership gave Toybiz exclusive rights to Marvel characters. Throughout the early 90s, Toybiz became best known for its Marvel superheroes and X-Men figure lines, which exploded in popularity during the early comic boom. Toybiz also picked up licenses for WCW, Lord of the Rings, Pokemon, and Spider-Man the Animated Series, which I am all a huge fan of. 1990s expansion. In 1993, Marvel formally acquires 46% of Toybiz, which is clearly just about half. And then in 1995, Toybiz became the exclusive worldwide manufacturer of Marvel toys. The company innovated with larger assortments, action figures, and vehicle playsets, helping define 90s action figures, I was born in 1995, so the nostalgia that I have for a lot of the Toybiz blister cars that come with their comics, it really hits home with me, and I love looking back on what Toybiz did back in the day. After Marvel went bankrupt in 1996, Toybiz essentially merged with Marvel Entertainment during its reorganization. The new company was called Marvel Enterprises, with Toybiz as its toy division. Avi Arad, I hope I said that correctly, who was a Toybiz executive, became a major force in pushing Marvel into movies and helped spark the later Marvel film boom. Toybiz produced hugely successful lines like the Marvel Legends that launched in 2002. It was highly articulated 6-inch action figures that became just pure staples for collectors. And like I said earlier, just the amount of nostalgia that I have for the early Toybiz figures, going back to collecting them with my brother, me being born in 95, just huge nostalgia for that. And then Lord of the Rings, 2001 to 2005, obviously it was tied to the film trilogy, so it was somewhat kid-friendly, but also just a very good collectible line for adults as well. And for a while there, Toybiz was one of the top action figure companies worldwide, rivaling Hasbro and Mattel in certain segments, because Mattel was still kind of fighting their place with their DC lines, and then Hasbro, obviously, we all know what a big corporate company Hasbro's definitely made their way, that's for sure. They've paved their own road. So towards their end of their run as a company, in 2006, Marvel signs a licensing agreement giving Hasbro the rights to produce Marvel toys, which started in January of 2007. Toybiz was rebranded as Marvel Toys, focusing mainly on non-Marvel properties like legendary comic book heroes. 2007-2008, without the Marvel license, Marvel Toys, quote-unquote, which was rebranded from obviously known as Toybiz, the legendary comic book heroes line underperformed, and the company ceases toy production. And after that, Toybiz/Marvel Toys effectively disappeared, and Hasbro took over Marvel's toy dominance. So in short, Toybiz began as a small Canadian toy maker, rose to prominence in the early 90s through its Marvel figure lines, merged into Marvel itself in 1998, created iconic, super successful toy lines like Marvel Legends and the Lord of the Ring line, but just over time, it really just lost its footing after Marvel licensed toys to Hasbro in 2006, and it just led to its end, which happened in 2008 when they quit producing after their legendary comic book heroes line underperformed. Key Toybiz lines. 1. Marvel Superheroes, 1990 to 1995. It was their first big Marvel line after teaming up with Marvel Comics. It was a 5-inch scale of colorful, often with gimmicky action figures like Thor's hammer throw or Punisher's cat firing gun. They covered core Marvel characters like Spider-Man, Hulk, Iron Man, Captain America, etc. And these figures from these characters just laid the groundwork for all later Marvel toys. 2. X-Men, 1991 to 2002. With all the hype that there was for the X-Men comics and the Fox animated series, which I'm just also a huge fan of as well, like I said earlier, the Spider-Man, the animated series, 90s was just different for animated superhero cartoons. But they spun off from the success of the X-Men comics and the animated series. It was a huge line. It had dozens of waves, vehicles, and different play sets, and it introduced deep core characters like Bishop, Omega Red, and multiple versions of Wolverine. As we all know, there are many versions, whether you want Cowboy Wolverine or Weapon X Wolverine or Brown and Tan Suit Wolverine, Tiger Stripe Wolverine. There's so many, we all know. And they were known for their wild variants and unusual sculpts. For many 90s kids, this was the Toybiz line. 3. Spider-Man the Animated Series, 1994 to 1999. So this show holds a huge place in my heart. I remember specifically, very vividly, watching this show with my brother and my mom growing up, and just the imagery is just iconic and it lives with me forever. The toy line tied into the 1994 cartoon, and it was a 5-inch scale just like the other ones, like the X-Men line, and with many Spider-Man variants, just like Wolverine variants, and a very huge, deep villain selection, such as Carnage, Hobgoblin, Mysterio, and the list goes on and on. Spawned sublines like Spider-Man Classics that also later evolved into Marvel Legends. 4. Marvel Legends, 2002 to 2006. This was Toybiz's crown jewel line. This is really where their bread and butter was. It's really what really kicked off their company and what they were really most well known for. And certainly from my age and my like I said earlier, I've said it a lot of times in this video. Born in 1995, I just remember seeing these big blister packs on the pegs with the comics and the little display stands or backdrops that they'd have with them, and just super articulated, like 20-30 points of articulation, and just have a lot of nostalgia for the early Marvel Legends Toybiz line. These were not 5-inch figures, these were actually 6-inch highly articulated figures and comic accurate sculpts, and featured Build-A-Figure packs. It revolutionized the collector market and set the standard for modern action figures to come. It included iconic waves such as a Series 1 that came with Captain America, Hulk, Iron Man, the Toad, a Sentinel Build-A-Figure wave, then a Galactic Build-A-Figure wave. They were doing a lot. Toybiz was really cooking, and they continued just killing it until Hasbro took over the line in 2007. Lord of the Rings, 2001 to 2005. This line launched alongside Peter Jackson's film trilogy, which obviously, again, I was a kid during this time in 2001. I was in elementary school, and I just remember when this movie came out and I first saw the ring race, and I was just, dude, that was one of the most haunting moments of my life. And that's from, watch Grudge or other scary movies and stuff as a kid when I shouldn't have, but yeah, I just will always remember that imagery. It sticks with me to this day. It was a hugely successful line with movie-accurate sculpts, very detailed accessories, and lots of characters, mainly for Fellowship members, plus some army builders like orcs and stuff like that. And it was considered one of the most complete movie-based figure lines ever. WCW wrestling figures, 1990 to 1999. So if you've been watching my channel lately, you know I've actually been getting into the Mattel Elite Collection wrestling line, and I have some older Jakks Pacifics from the early 2000s that I had, the exact ones that I had growing up with my brother. We had the ring and everything, dude. So kind of getting into Mattel a little bit with the more like Attitude Era and classic WWE, WF, whatever, WCW it's a lot of fun, man. Before WWE's dominance, Toybiz made figures for World Championship Wrestling, aka WCW. And they were known for exaggerated poses and action features, and they were popular among wrestling fans, but a little bit less collector-driven compared to later WWE lines. Legendary Comic Book Heroes, 2007 to 2008. Released under the Marvel Toys name after they rebranded and Toybiz lost the Marvel rights to Hasbro in 2006-2007. It was the same style as Marvel Legends, but it was based on independent comic characters that I'm not even really familiar with until I was doing some research. And there was some called Savage Dragon, Judge Dredd, which I know Judge Dredd, and then Witchblade, which I am not familiar with either. So if you ask what most Toybiz collectors remember, it was the early 90s Marvel, X-Men, and Spider-Man lines that defined so many childhood collections throughout the 90s. Especially if you ask me, I've even gone back and tried to track down some of my old Toybiz figures that I had growing up, whether it was from the early 2000s or even before my time, like the early 90 Toybiz figures that were just like the 5 non-POA whatever figures, you know? Legends set the bar for adult collector-focused figures. Lord of the Rings was a rare case of a film being both kid-friendly and a highly collectible line for adults, and even after their end, Toybiz's innovations live on today in modern Hasbro Marvel Legends. So everyone, that is going to wrap up the general history of Toybiz and how they rose to their prime and honestly kind of ended in their prime. We didn't even really get to see Toybiz in a faulty state of mind. They just kept delivering and hitting and just getting better and better. And had Hasbro not gotten the rights in 2007 and started producing their Marvel Legends, who knows what else Toybiz would have done and how much better they would have been. Because even for those early days, those figures, honestly, man, like I have a Toybiz Sabretooth, Colossus, the Punisher. Those figures, even today, hold up so well. They have toe articulation, hand articulation. I have a Spider-Man Toybiz that's so cool. Just so much nostalgia for these figures. And then when I see that Toybiz emblem, it just really takes you back, man. It really takes you back. So even during that time when they were on their rise, Mattel was kind of finding their roots and finding their footing with the DC line. All their DC characters. And obviously Hasbro, they have just absolutely, obviously they have the Black Series. Hasbro's just absolutely killing it, of course. Huge corporation, as we all know. So with that being said, if you wouldn't mind hitting that like button if you enjoyed the video, I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. Also, subscribe if you're not already. I would also appreciate that. I hope you enjoy some other content. And most of the time, I'm kind of like a press play and yap kind of dude and just kind of go off the fly. I just kind of work better like that. But it was kind of nice just looking back and jotting down some notes and bullet points and really doing some research and refreshing my mind a little bit and actually having a little bit of a script to go off of. And it was a little bit different than what I'm used to, and I hope you enjoyed that. So I'm going to try to start doing this type of format of video a little more often. So let me quit yapping, y'all. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Like I said, hit that like button, subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.